Okay, so we've been doing these lessons about how to speak in heightened received pronunciation or traditional received pronunciation. Um, but we might ask the obvious question of why one would want to speak in a posh accent. Why would one want to do that? For me, I think that received pronunciation sounds beautiful. I love those clipped vowel sounds, that cut glass accent. But that might not be enough for you. You might not necessarily want to change your accent. So, are there any practical benefits from using heightened received pronunciation? Well, let's first talk about possible drawbacks. There may well be some people who think that if you speak that way, that you're a bit snooty or a bit pretentious. One of my colleagues says that I have a snooty voice. I think that's perhaps a little bit unkind. And also, there may be some people whose politics are quite left wing, who associate a Posh accent with arrogant and smarmy conservative politicians. Well, we won't get into politics, but I do think that the people who dislike a posh accent are probably in a minority. There was a survey done a few years ago that found that the most popular voices in this country belong to Joanna Lumley, Stephen Fry, and David Attenborough. People love the sound of those voices. So I do think that if you speak in a very posh accent, most people will actually like it rather than dislike it. Okay. In terms of advantages, one obvious advantage is when you're complaining about things, when you're in a shop and you complain, or whether you're on the telephone to some service. I find that speaking in a posh accent actually gets a faster response. A chap I worked with, he relayed an incident where his train was delayed and things started to get moving when a posh bloke got very angry and started making very angry complaints. He said things always start to move when the posh bloke gets angry, and I do think that that's probably true. I think that there is a gravitas to a heightened RP accent. It has a certain authority to it. I work in healthcare. I have quite a lowly professional status myself. I'm a substance misuse worker. I help people with drug and alcohol problems. And in the course of my work, I talk to a lot of professionals, especially doctors. A consultant that I work with, he observed that when I'm on a phone talking to doctors, that I have quite an authoritative manner about me. When I say to them, have you done this? Have you done that? What's your plan for the patient? And I do think that speaking in a posh accent does add a little bit to that authority. I think that you can, within your career, advance yourself a little bit by adding a bit of authority to your voice by using conservative received pronunciation. It might be nice if we lived in a world where people don't judge you about how you look or how you sound, but unfortunately, we do live in a world where people will make negative judgments based on anything about you. I'm not the best person to talk about looks, seeing as I have messy long hair and I dress like a slob. But if I did attend a job interview or started in a new job, I think I would think about what I wore and how I dressed. I dressed quite smart, and I think most of us would. We'd be sensible about that, how we look. We'd take a bit of care about our appearance. Nevertheless, we also ought to think about how we sound, how we come across. And sometimes a regional or provincial accent may not necessarily be an advantage to you. People may make some judgments about you based on your accent. So you might say, well, why should I change my accent? Well, people should accept how I sound, but the truth is that they may not necessarily do that. They may well judge you. So learning to speak in a posh accent, learning to use received pronunciation may well be quite helpful in avoiding being judged or stereotyped. And I think that may be particularly helpful for people from an ethnic minority or an immigrant background, if perhaps your first language isn't English. Learning to speak in quite a posh voice may well be something that's an advantage to you in breaking down and challenging negative stereotypes. You may well think that that's not necessarily for you, that that's not really what you want to do, that you're very happy with how you sound, and that's perfectly fine. But I do offer it to you as an option that you might want to consider adopting a posher voice, and I will happily help you to do that with these videos. So thank you very much for listening to me.